The wind at that altitude didn't just blow, it bit. It was a physical entity, a frigid hand trying to rip Elian and Nyx from the precarious rock ledge where they took shelter, hanging over the bottomless abyss that separated the floating islands from the surface of the Forgotten World. Below lay only perpetual storm clouds and the promise of an eternal fall. Above, the searchlights of the Solaria Academy swept the cliffs like accusing fingers of divine light, hunting for the intruders who had dared to stir the sanctuary of their filthy secrets. Elian breathed heavily, not from the physical strain of the climb, but from the storm raging inside his chest. The voice of his former general, Agnaroth, still echoed in his skull like a funeral knell. "Brother, free me." The humiliation was a corrosive acid. Agnaroth, the world breaker, the beast who had swallowed oceans and spat hurricanes, reduced to a magical battery for a school of arrogant teenagers and their hypocritical masters. The irony was so grotesque that Elian felt the urge to vomit and laugh at the same time. "We have to move," Nyx said, snapping him out of his murderous trance. She was crouched beside him, her white eyes glowing with an unsettling intensity in the darkness. She seemed unaffected by the cold or the vertigo. "The purifiers will release the light hounds at any moment. If those things catch your void scent, there won't be a place in Ethelgard where you can hide. Let them come," Elian growled, his fingers digging into the rock until it cracked. "I'll rip the light right out of their eyes." "Very brave, and very stupid," Nyx countered, grabbing his arm with surprising strength for someone so slight. "Right now, you're just a kid with a dirty magic trick and a rusted sword. They are a legion. If you want to save your friend from the basement, you have to survive the night first. Follow me." Without waiting for an answer, Nyx glided sideways across the cliff face, finding invisible footholds where there seemed to be nothing but smooth granite. Elian followed, swallowing his pride. She was right. His mortal body was a hateful limitation. He needed time. He needed a strategy. They crawled through narrow crevices and forgotten drainage tunnels covered in slime and phosphorescent algae, until they reached a rusted opening that led into the bowels of the island's infrastructure. Nyx pushed a grate aside, and they dropped into a maintenance corridor, far from the polished marble and red carpets of the surface. Here, everything was steam pipes, massive gears turning slowly, and the smell of oil and rust. "Welcome to the subplot," Nyx said, brushing the dust off her modified uniform. "This is where the people who keep this castle in the sky from falling down live. The mechanics, the duct cleaners, and us the rats." They walked to a small alcove hidden behind a massive boiler. There were old mattresses, shelves made from fruit crates, and a strange collection of stolen items. Broken compasses, forbidden books, scraps of food. "It's my nest," she explained, dropping onto one of the mattresses. "Sit down. You look like you want to kill someone, and it's making me nervous." Elian remained standing, surveying the place with tactical disdain. It was safe, sure, but it was a burrow. He was used to obsidian thrones. "That thing in the lab," Elian began, his voice low and dangerous. "How long has it been there?" Nyx pulled an apple from a pocket and took a loud bite. "The pulsing heart? That's what the archmages call it. They say it was found 100 years ago in a smoking crater in the wastelands. They brought it here, built the academy on top of it, and used it to amplify the students' natural resonance. It's Solaria's dirty little secret. Without that thing, half of these prodigies couldn't even light a match." Elian closed his eyes. 100 years. A century of torture for Agnaroth. Every spell cast in this school, every display of power by types like Jarek or Professor Valerius, was a lash against the soul of his brother-in-arms. The light they worshipped so much was nothing more than the distilled agony of a dark being. "They're stealing his power," Elian whispered. "They filter it, strip away the darkness, and keep the raw energy. They're parasites. They're pragmatists," Nyx corrected, watching him with curiosity. "But you took that very personally. You said he was one of your generals. That implies that you are, well, not just some 12-year-old human boy." Elian looked at her. He could kill her now. It would be easy. A touch to the carotid, A quick siphon, and she would be dust. No one would ever know where she was. But she had saved him. And, more importantly, she knew the tunnels. She was a valuable asset. What I am is the end of this place, Elian said, evading a direct confirmation. And you, Nyx, are going to help me tear it down. And what's in it for me? She asked, tilting her head. I like chaos, but I also like staying alive. Tearing down the Academy means taking on the Council of 12, the Royal Guard, and probably the Church of Light itself. Elian stepped toward her, invading her personal space. His gray eyes, now tinged with an almost imperceptible violet, locked on her white ones. You get freedom. I know what you are, Nyx. You're not a successful experiment. You're a ticking time bomb. I feel the instability in your core. Those scientists did something to you that is slowly killing you. You're phasing that ability to walk through walls. It's disintegrating you piece by piece, isn't it? Nyx's smile vanished. For the first time, she looked like a frightened child. Ow! I can fix it. Elian lied with a demon's fluency. I know the nature of soul binding. If you help me free the entity in the basement, I'll use its power to stabilize you. You'll be free, and you'll live. It was a half-promise. He could do it. Yes, but he didn't care whether she lived or died, as long as she served her purpose. However, for a desperate mortal, hope was the strongest chain. Nyx studied him for a long minute. Then, she nodded slowly. Deal, devourer. But if you betray me, I'll drag you to hell with me. That's exactly where I'm from, darling, Elian replied with a cold smile. And I have no intention of going back alone. The return to the dorms was an exercise in extreme stealth. They managed to slip through the ventilation ducts just before the artificial sun on the dome's ceiling began to glow, simulating dawn. Elian slid into bed moments before the magical alarm woke Pip. His roommate sat up, yawning and scratching his stomach. Morning, Elian. Did you sleep okay? You got terrible bags under your eyes. I slept like the dead, Elian replied, closing his eyes for a moment to center his mind. That day, classes were a test of patience. Every time he saw a student conjure a sphere of light, every time he heard a professor praise the purity of their magic, Elian felt Agnaroth scream. Now he knew the truth. That warm, golden light was nothing more than processed blood. On the training grounds, Instructor Grom, an ex-military man with a runic metal arm, organized practice duels. I don't want any flourishes today, Grom shouted. I want to see mastery. Vayne versus... Let's see. The Lightless. To the arena. Jarek Vayne leaped into the sand circle, grinning from ear to ear. He wore brand new, gleaming armor and wielded a spear that crackled with static electricity. I'll give you a chance, cousin, Jarek said loudly, making sure everyone heard. Surrender now and spare yourself the broken bones. Dad won't be happy if I send you back on a stretcher. Elian stepped into the circle empty-handed. He had left his rusted sword on the bench. No weapons, the crowd whispered. Is he crazy? Elian looked at Jarek. He could see the threads of energy flowing from the island's core into his cousin's body. He saw how Jarek was unconsciously absorbing Agnaroth's power to fuel his muscles and his spear. You're using my property, Elian thought. Begin, Grom ordered. Jarek lunged, his spear transforming into a golden bolt of lightning. He aimed for Elian's chest, a strike meant not to kill, but to cause severe internal damage. Elian didn't dodge this time. He raised his left hand and caught the tip of the spear mid-flight. The impact should have shattered his hand and arm. There was a burst of light and sound. Dust kicked up. When the cloud cleared, silence fell over the training grounds like a heavy blanket. Elian stood perfectly still. His bare hand gripped the spear's blade, stopping at inches from his heart. Jarek's electrical energy sizzled furiously against Elian's skin, but it didn't burn him. It simply vanished. It sank in his palm like water into a dry sponge. Jarek yanked at the weapon, trying to pull it free, but it was caught in an iron grip. His face shifted from arrogance to pure panic. What? Let go. Elian looked up. His eyes flashed. You claim this is your strength, Jarek, Elian said, his voice calm, yet amplified by a dark resonance that made the spectators' teeth ache. But it isn't yours. It's borrowed, and the owner has come to collect the rent. Elian tightened his grip. Crack. The spearhead, forged from star steel and enchanted by master smiths, shattered like cheap glass. Jarek stumbled back, falling flat on his ass in the sand, staring at his destroyed weapon. Elian let the metal fragments fall to the ground. He didn't attack his fallen cousin. He simply turned toward Instructor Grom, who was staring at him with his mouth open and his good eye narrowed in suspicion. The equipment was defective, sir, Elian said. I suggest a quality inspection. He walked out of the arena slowly, feeling the stares of terror and aught digging into his back. It had been a risk. He had shown too much, but he needed to establish dominance. He needed them to know that the rules had changed. However, as he washed his hands in the locker room, he felt a sting in his mind. It wasn't Agnaroth. It was something more subtle. A connection. Someone was watching him, not with their eyes, but with their mind. Interesting, a silky female voice whispered inside his head. A devourer in the Garden of Light. I haven't seen one in centuries. Elian tensed, searching for the source mentally, but the presence was slippery, like oil on water. Who are you? Elian projected with force. A friend, or perhaps a rival. Find me at the clock tower at midnight. If you survive the assassins your father just hired to solve your problem, of course. The connection snapped. Elian looked at his reflection in the mirror. Marcus Vane had hired assassins. His own father. Human treachery knew no bounds. Fine, Elian told his reflection. Dinner is coming to my door. That night, the basement was quieter than usual. Pip had been mysteriously moved to another room for maintenance reasons, leaving Elian alone. It was an obvious trap, devoid of all subtlety. Marcus wasn't a man of complex intrigue. He was a hammer. Elian sat in the center of the room, in the darkness, waiting. At 2 a.m., the door lock gave a faint click. It didn't open. Instead, a shadow slid under the threshold, flat as a sheet of paper, and began to materialize in the center of the room. A shadow assassin. Mercenary mages who sold their souls to lesser entities of the umbral plane in exchange for the ability to merge with the darkness. They were fast, silent, and lethal. The figure rose, a humanoid silhouette made of black smoke, wielding two curved daggers that reflected no light. Nothing personal, kid, the shadow whispered. Your father pays well for a regrettable accident. The shadow lunged. Elian didn't move. He didn't even open his eyes. You're wrong about two things, Elian said as the dagger descended toward his neck. First, this is very personal. And second, you are not the darkness. When the shadow blade touched Elian's skin, it didn't cut. It was absorbed. The assassin gasped, tried to recoil, but found he couldn't. His dagger, and the shadow arm holding it, were fused to Elian's neck. You're just a tourist in the dark, Elian continued, opening his eyes. His pupils were two vertical abysses. I own the place. Elian grabbed the assassin by his throat of smoke. Devour. It was grotesque. The assassin's shadow form began to fray, violently sucked into Elian's interior. The man screamed, a sound that wasn't physical but psychic, as his magical and life essence was ripped from his being. Within seconds, the room was empty again. There was no body. There was no trace. The assassin had been consumed entirely, added to Elian's growing reservoir of power. Elian stood up, stretching his neck. He felt full. The energy of a shadow assassin was much more substantial than that of a wolf or a golem. It was spicy, with the aftertaste of fear and black magic. Thank you, Father, he whispered to the empty room. Exactly what I needed for dessert. He slipped out through the window, heading for the clock tower. He had a date with the mysterious voice. And now, with the assassin's power flowing through his veins, he had a new ability. He could walk among the shadows. Literally, he merged with the darkness of the eaves and appeared instantaneously on the neighboring roof, moving like a flicker in the night. The clock tower was the tallest structure in the academy, a massive mechanism of gears and pendulums that marked the sacred time of Ethelgard. At the top, perched on a gargoyle, a figure waited for him. It wasn't Nyx. It was a tall woman dressed in professor's robes, but her face was hidden by a hood. "You're late," she said, turning around. She pulled back her hood. Elian stopped in his tracks. It was the head librarian, the kind old lady who always stamped his books with a smile. But now, she didn't look like an old woman. Her posture was straight, her skin glowed with renewed youth, and her eyes were golden and slit like a reptile's. "I saw you in the arena, little devourer," she said, licking her lips with a forked tongue. "And I thought, finally, someone who speaks my language." "What are you?" Elian asked, recognizing the aura. She wasn't human. She wasn't a demon, either. She was something ancient. "They called me Ignis 1,000 years ago," she said, smiling to reveal fangs. "The last solar fire dragon. And I think you and I share a common enemy. The humans who hunted us." Elian felt a jolt of surprise. "A dragon? Here? I thought dragons were extinct," he said cautiously. "Hidden," she corrected. "Or in my case, disguised. I've been waiting centuries to burn this place down from the inside. But I was missing a trigger, a catalyst." She took a step toward him, extending a hand with perfectly manicured claws. "You want to free your general. I want to reclaim my eggs, which are kept in the same vault as your friend, used as trophies. What do you say, Void Sovereign? Shall we form an alliance between fire and nothingness?" Elian looked at the outstretched hand. An alliance with a dragon. Fire and void. It was an unstable, volatile, and absolutely catastrophic combination. Exactly what he needed. Elian shook the dragon woman's hand. Her skin burned to the touch, but he didn't pull away. "Let all burn," Elian said. "Let all burn," Ignis replied, her eyes glowing with the promise of the apocalypse. Below, the Academy slept, ignorant of the fact that, at its peak, 2 monsters had just signed its death warrant. The true war was not going to be fought between armies. It was going to be a massacre, and it would begin tomorrow.